Hey guys, I'm Fancy.
And I'm Colleen.
And this is Murder by Design. I said pause. Still having difficulties, but we're good now.
We'll get it eventually.
I almost had it that time. That was perfect almost. And then I thought it was, I didn't think it was going to stop. So that was so weird. So now I know that it actually stops and doesn't loop again. So now I know that's good. So
next time,
I'm getting better.
One day, better.
It's getting closer each time. Alrighty, guys. Well, welcome to our Monday night crime of the month. Tonight is the live intro of the case that we are covering this month. And a little while back, Colleen and I, we were approached to do an interview with a former FBI agent. And who in the world could pass that up, right? So I think we were even more surprised when we walked into that interview. The accomplishments that Elaine Smith made were nothing short of incredible in the realm of law enforcement.
She's responsible for much of the money laundering tracking procedures, but also the impressive part was how she was one of the first women agents in the Bureau, took down the entire Chicago mob in the 80s. So for this next month, that's what we're going to cover for our crime of the month.
So Elaine Smith and the downfall of the Chicago mob. So tonight we're just going to kind of introduce you to two of the main big players in what we're going to be talking about this week. So Elaine Smith is the FBI agent that did all of this. And she was a Chicago native. She graduated the University of Illinois and she became a fourth grade teacher on Chicago's west side and settled down for what she thought would be a quiet life, aside from her teaching in a pretty low socioeconomic part of the city. So she was a tough woman. She had to teach in a pretty rough neighborhood. And her husband, Tom, he was also a teacher. So, they were kind of just living the life. And then her husband, however, he decides to have bigger plans and he becomes an FBI agent.
To me, when she talked about this, it was so insane that it was like, well, one of our friends was in the FBI and they told him he should be in the FBI. And then eventually he told me I should be in the FBI. And right. They just were in the FBI.
Yeah, they just, join the FBI. Yeah, let's just do that.
We're like the Costco membership. That's like, to me, like I envisioned that conversation. Like, I love Costco. You should get a Costco membership. And no, you join the FBI.
FBI, right?
This is what I picture in my head, that conversation going like.
Totally. So, but when her husband joined the FBI, the couple moved to Jackson, Mississippi, and Elaine continued teaching. But at this time, it was junior high school, so a little more mouthy of kids. I think that's one of the hardest levels to teach, junior high school.
Yes, preteens.
Not quite kids. They're not quite, in high school, and their emotions are running wild and they don't know what the hell they're doing. And, it's like, they don't know who they are. It's a crazy time.
Hormonal yapping, annoying. And I speak from that as a person who met my husband and started dating him in middle school.
Right.
Annoying people.
And this was the very first year that the city was forced to racially integrate their public schools. So
even more tense.
Ooh, like crazy. Down in Mississippi too. Like, wow.
That was probably tough.
That has got to be tough.
Really tough.
That had to be tough. Yeah.
And then in 1979, with her husband's urging, as I said, and a young daughter at home, Elaine applied to the FBI. After passing the qualifying tests and interviews, she earned her top secret clearance and an appointment as a special agent in training at Quantico, right? Quantico Marine Base. After completing the physically, mentally, and psychologically grueling training of the FBI, Elaine was sent to Chicago to begin her career as a special agent.
It's so funny that she says it like that, because this is part of the bio that she sent us, and I think it's so funny because she's like, yeah, with her husband's urging and a young daughter at home, because that's what you do when you have a young daughter at home. You decide to become an FBI agent. Yeah, Yeah. Totally
Right.
what you should be doing. What
You're a teacher. Your husband was a teacher. Your husband then joined the FBI. And then, I was bored trying to deal with racially, integrated schooling and of teenagers. And,
my young child,
so I'm just going to join the FBI.
I think I might want to carry a gun in my Gucci, which is the name of her book, by the way. I freaking think that's the most badass name ever. So anyway, Elaine's agent status made her and her husband, Tom, the very first married couple to enter the FBI. So, I mean, that's just crazy.
And so Elaine, being from Chicago, always had that deep-seated interest in the Chicago mob. And upon assignment in Chicago, she developed a strategy to obtain the boss's approval to gain an assignment on an organized crime squad, a position only one other woman in the history of Chicago's FBI office had ever worked.
Right. And her transfer to the organized crime division wasn't one the boys in the team really relished, because she's one of the first women in FBI. So they kind of decided to give her the case that most considered an old dog case, meaning one that had been unsuccessful for over 30 years. And so Elaine began to work on taking down the mob, and she kind of narrowed in on a person named Ken Ito. And I mean, this is kind of, they basically threw her the case that they're like, yeah, you know what? None of us have been able to do it. Just hand it to her. She won't
set her up
us
to fail.
Yeah, well, and just kind of set her up to be, run around in her own circles without having to bother them on their cases. Like, oh, no, we don't want you on our stuff. You go do that other thing.
That boys club mentality.
Shoo, so.
But in 18 months, she had gathered enough evidence to federally indict Ito. And unknown to anyone at that time, sign his death warrant. 2 mobsters tried to kill Ito and failed. The 2 ended up tortured and murdered by their mob compatriots, and Ito was now working for Elaine. Yeah, so she set it up.
She set it up. She did a great job. And so in 1987, Elaine was named the first female supervisor in the history of the Chicago FBI and the second supervisor in the United States. And for the next 10 years, Elaine remained the only female member of management. So that's a little bit about Elaine. You're going to get to hear from her because, like I said, we did do the interview with her. So when we get to the end of this, we'll have that interview for you guys. It was amazing. It's incredible. And we're going to put the part about the mob up here, and then I think we're going to put the whole interview in our Patreon account. So she talks about how she started her, her time with the money laundering, what she did with 9/11, because she was
my favorite part, guys. She essentially did the same tactics she did with the mob to the terrorists after 9/11.
And it's amazing.
And she's so, you'd think, one of the only women in the FBI at the time, especially in a management level, she would be such a hard ass.
Yeah.
And like a mean, tough as nails. I mean, she's tough as nails, but she's not.
Absolutely. She's not a
bitch. Like she's
very nice. Very, very, very nice. Very sweet. And you know what? It's so funny. You look at her and you would never in your life believe she's an FBI agent. You'd be like,
nope, teacher.
Right. Yeah, teacher. Definitely a teacher. I could definitely see teacher, not FBI agent. So
no, absolutely not. But so like we said, Ken Ito. This is a guy who we're going to be talking about a decent chunk in this upcoming month of our cases, because he was this kind of main guy in the Chicago mob. And he was known by his street name as Tokyo Joe, and was the only Japanese American to have ever been in a position of trust with the Sicilian mob. He was born in California in 1919, and like many other Japanese families, the Itos were forced into the internment camps during World War II. He learned that he had a deep propensity for numbers and card games after playing hundreds of them while in those internment camps.
Right. So, I mean, he's a pretty smart guy, and literally this mob. So the Chicago mob, like we're going to talk a lot about the Chicago mob too, but it was honestly even more powerful than the 5 families in New York, because it was the largest and and it was controlled by one thing, so they didn't have 5 families that they had to go through to try and do stuff. It was one thing, and they were the most dangerous, the most high level of Chicago of mafia in the United States. So, I mean, getting into this was a pretty big deal for him.
Well, and think about location wise, New York's got the East Coast, but being in Chicago, you've got the rest of the country.
Yeah, and
You,
that's what they said. They can. Well, they said, what I've
yeah,
been researching, they controlled the entire country,
yeah,
including New York. Everything that went into New York came out of Chicago.
yeah.
And Capone set up Chicago. I mean, it was a lot. So these are names
Mhm.
that are going to, the names
You're
are
gonna recognize them.
yeah, you're going to recognize these names. So in 1951, though, Ito was released from the camp, from the internment camp, and he landed in Chicago. And he quickly became a high roller in the local poker games. And being a consistent winner, he caught the eye of the men who protected these games, like Turk Torillo, Vince Solano, Sam Giancano, Garcana, and Joey Ayupa. I don't know if I said that right or not, but I think I did. But anyway, not taking too kindly to him bleeding money out of them, they forced him to pay a street tax on his winnings, and in exchange, he was welcomed into the operation.
I just imagine, like gambling back then versus gambling today.
Oh yeah,
It's so different. So
right.
different.
So different.
But they assisted him in setting up a large bolito, right? Whenever it comes to, Italian, Sicilian, any sort of pronunciation of any names or words, not good. You think I'd be better. I have family from Sicily. Nope, can't do it. I enjoy pasta. That's about it.
I'm Italian Sicilian, but I was adopted, so I didn't grow up in a family that was Sicilian. So I mean, yeah, I kind of did my own research and learning about it, but yeah, I'm not great. I'm not even great at pronouncing a lot of them either. But Bolito, yes.
So a large bolito or numbers operation. He was known to turn over up to $200,000 a week, and that was back then.
This is in the 50s,
yeah,
50s and 60s, guys.
Essentially millions, just essentially millions.
Yeah.
Ito was responsible to pay off the Chicago cops to the tune of $3,000 per week. He became a huge earner for the outfit, but things went awry when he was targeted in a gambling racket. And his bosses felt that he might turn state's evidence and set out a failed hit on his life. And obviously the rest is history.
Right. So over the next 3 episodes, we'll be discussing the Chicago mob outfit, Ken Ito, FBI agent Elaine Smith, and how one woman single-handedly took down the Sicilian Chicago mob. It's going to be a fun month. I've always been particularly fascinated with the mob myself, so I can't wait to dive into this.
Yeah, I honestly am super excited to talk about this with you guys. Being able to speak to Elaine was just a wonderful privilege. And obviously we talk to many people who are high up in law enforcement and, lawyers, prosecutors, defense, right. All the above. But I mean, an FBI agent is pretty up there. And for her, she was very willing to talk to us. She even complimented us, which just made me cry because it's the highest level of compliment you can get is from a federal bureau investigation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And her book, a handgun in my Gucci, is going to be our book of the month. So if you want to head over to Instagram sometime this week, we'll have up the link to it. And we're actually going to try and do something different this month with our book of the month. Guys, we're actually going to try and do some interaction with you over here where we, talk about certain chapters of the book. We're going to get the book ourselves, and we're going to try and talk with you guys about it and have some discussion so we can actually interact with you guys some more on the book of the month, because before we've just been kind of giving you the book and then, we don't talk to you. But I really want to talk about this one because I'm really excited about it. It's a really interesting book, I'm sure. So anyway, guys, so thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives and Murder by Design. Don't forget to join our Patreon member club at patreon.com/truecrimewives or our yearly membership club, which saves you a lot of money at madgenderentertainment.com, which gets you exclusive mini episodes, inside documents and pictures from the case, live YouTube discussion, our exclusive discussion group on Facebook, and some amazing Good Wives merchandise.
And so make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives, and make sure you check out season 1 and season 2 of our podcast, The Good Wife's Guide to True Crime, which we're wrapping it up. Our season finale episode is going to be coming out in the next week. So you definitely want to stay tuned.
Where I knock Colleen out no, just kidding.
All right. But you also want to be on the lookout for 2 new podcasts we're launching in October.
Yep. Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime one dish at a time. Bye, guys.
No sound.